Well, it's been a couple of weeks since we last spoke, and I was rained off the job, as you recall. But what I want to do is carry on with that rust work and the patching. But just before I start, I'm going to mow this little patch here because the grass has become quite long here. It's died off in some areas, but here it's quite long, and so I'll just move the Troopy forward and then mow this patch. Then come back and then we'll have a look at those couple of little areas, including that one on that side that we spoke about last time. We'll drill out those pop rivets and pull off that strip where the mud flap is on that side there. I don't know whether I told you, but I did actually have the starter motor replaced in that. It wasn't just a bad relay or bad earth, it was the starter motor itself. So what we'll do is take off these two lights, or at least light covers here and here. Then when we get out the pressure washer, we can blow out those two cavities. So I don't know whether you can see in there, but that's these are little self-tapping screws, or bolts rather, and so I'll go and grab myself a socket. Now these are an 8mm. So the mud flap's off, and you can now see that this has pop rivets in here too, so we'll drill all of those out. So these are not pop rivets at all, but just the holes where the where those check screws went through. So it's really only these few pop rivets here we've got to take out. So you can see now that it's fairly torn. You get the pressure washer onto it. Just as an aside too, I have actually seen where owners have cut this off completely and just really put a bottom on it. And I guess that's when they've had a situation that's maybe worse than this. This has been torn, but in their case rusted out completely, and so it's easier for them to remove the area altogether than to try and patch it. But I think in this case we can probably do a reasonable job of patching this, at least as long as it's invisible to a casual glance. So we cleaned all that up, as in pressure washed it, so we're going to obviously let it dry now. We blew it out from the inside as well. We cleaned up these two lights here and here, and also blew this out under here. I'll just flip you sideways so you can see, but in under there. And we'll let all of that dry. What we might do is grab some sandpaper and see if we can clean this up a bit. Sanded that a little to try and get it fairly smooth. I'll show you what we did after we sprayed a little primer on it. And you can see that it kind of gives us a much better idea of what we might need to do further to get that smooth. So the following day, and we're just going to check those things that we did yesterday, see if they've dried off nicely. First of all, this. Now, I've thought about this a fair bit, and I'm just not sure what to do about it. Whether to cut this whole panel out from here and then try to recreate it, which might be difficult given my lack of tools and the fact is that I'm not a fabricator, so it'd all be pretty well guesswork. So who knows how bad it might end up. There's also a dent up here which might just pop back in with the appropriate encouragement. But the second thought is to cover this whole section with something like aluminium checker plate. And while that might be asymmetrical because it is only on one side, I guess it's always possible to do it on the other side as well. So for now, let's continue to give this some more thought, because that's clearly pretty well destroyed, that section at least. And then of course this is badly dented, rippled, bumped. So it wouldn't be easy to patch up, short of knocking it all in and then fiberglassing or something. But what I do want to do today is to focus on the repair here. Now you can see that it's still pretty obvious that it's been patched. So we need to get the sander out and get that smooth as we possibly can before applying some more filler to it. So let's get that happening. So we've cleaned it up pretty well, but what has happened is that you see that hole at the end there, there was a paper thin sliver of fiberglass and it's fallen right out. So I think what we're going to do is fill it with body filler. So let's mix some up and do that. Last time we were cleaning up with that sanding where we'd put in that bog, and we were having a look at this side here. And let's pop around there and I'll tell you where we might go with that. See this here? We've spoken about this a few times, and I've kind of been uncertain about what it is that we're going to do about it. And I spoke about some people just cut them off there. So in other words, delete that whole section when they've got really bad rust down here. but I think that this is actually not so bad. There's a bump in here and there's this gouge here, but in terms of rust it's not too bad. So I've got a couple of choices, you know. One is to put fiberglass around here and just seal this up, but then I still have all of this rough bumpiness from where obviously well, what's happening, I think I did explain this earlier, is that a tire's come off or shredded. It's put a thump in there and probably pushed that in. The previous owners got inside with a block of wood and banged it back out, but of course it's a pretty rudimentary panel job, so it's all bumpy and lumpy. Now what I have discovered is that you can buy this panel here, and it obviously means cutting it off from there, from here, you know, and then welding back on. But that actually may be the better way to go. So I've sent off an inquiry about that. It's about 150 bucks for that panel, and so rather than me try and fabricate something, and I think I spoke about checker plate at one stage, maybe the answer is just to just cut that out and replace that whole panel. It'll give me an opportunity too to practice my my welding skills. So let's get back to those other rust spots, because for now we'll leave this and we'll focus on those others. Just before we do that though, we'll put these lights back on. When and if we get to the point where we cut this off, we may have access to the inside of that, so we can do something about that. So rather than just fill it with gunk at the moment, let's just put those light covers back on. So under here we've put that in there, and then inside though there's a big chunk of and I don't think you're going to be able to see that, but inside, no you can't, inside there's a big chunk of bog, and we might just grind that back a bit if we can get a tool in there, and then we can just cover the whole lot with a rust paint. In order for rust to develop, it needs moisture and oxygen, and if we can starve it of both of those things, the rust shouldn't go any further. Then on this one you can see some of the tiny surface rust developing on that bare metal, but there's still a bit of a tidy up here to go. Let me jump up. You see this body line here which carries on through there. Obviously that's going to need to be cut in under here, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. So I'll put another layer of bog on, and at the same time we'll do that one we just looked at.